Hi, Chris. So this is our video for doing our 1920s presentation, and how we're kind of set it up is we're not going to be doing a 10-minute block per person. We're actually going to do like a few slides, and then we'll switch it up between people, so it's kind of more natural and fluid. So to start off our presentation, we are going to make go to the next PowerPoint slide. Wait, we might need to read it. We need to make it so it's easy to click.
Well, we're going to be talking about the 1920s and culture of the 1920s. We're going to start off with some specific examples, and then we're going to go into a larger discussion of culture as a whole. We're going to be using Video Ant to annotate videos, and we're going to be using Poll Anywhere or Everywhere?
Poll Anywhere.
Anywhere and Everywhere for students to pull in their responses. And everyone's going to have our Google Drive PowerPoint open on their computer so that they can participate in our discussion.
Yep. So to start off, now that it works, yay! I'll start off the discussion with introducing people to some of the broader themes in the 1920s. So I'll be talking about how it's a little bit different than the 1910s. We just had World War I, men are coming home, and you have like new positions for women in society. So they have higher status. You have like the 19th Amendment going on. And there's also the explosion of the Jazz Age, and you have the rise of African Americans in the Harlem Renaissance. After that, Jennifer will take over.
So I will be presenting, actually before we present the poll, we're going to talk about pre-World War I and post-World War I and how the change between women and we're going to have them watch 2 videos, probably about 30 seconds each, and this is where they're also going to be able to annotate on Video Ant and just put in a response which they can actually later use for their poll that we're going to have posted. They'll be able to text in their answers as well as use the online version and type up their answer, which we will give access through the slideshow.
And so, I was just going to say, we're going to briefly review the poll results too. Have a little bit of a discussion, but just quick.
Yeah.
You know, a couple minutes.
Yeah. Our poll answer, our question would be how have women changed from the 1910s to the 1920s, and they'll be able to use the 2 videos and compare them and answer the questions on there. And as Kristen said, we're going to then go into the discussion about the poll.
After that, we're going to go into a little bit of a lecture question and answer style portion. Now that we've got everyone kind of thinking about differences between World War I and the 1920s, we've got their brains going, we're going to go into a few specific examples of changes. So the first one we're going to discuss is fashion. Gibson girls, we have a picture here of a Gibson girl. This would be women pre-1920s. And then over here we have a picture of the flapper girls, and we're just going to go over, look at these 2 pictures, what's different. We have different hairstyles, different body shapes in the dresses. Dresses are shorter, you know, and how are these different? What's different? Not discuss necessarily why yet. We're going to save the why for later on in the discussion. The next thing we're going to talk about is the Harlem Renaissance, and here we actually have a quick video from the History Channel, which we're going to play. We're going to play approximately 1 minute and 30 seconds of this video. Yeah. Which we're going to have preloaded and ready to go. Unfortunately, this video, since it's from the History Channel, it wouldn't link into the PowerPoint.
So that's a little bit of the video right there.
And we're going to have them just watch this one video. That we'll just have the video play. They can listen to the audio of the video. We won't necessarily be lecturing ourselves about this part. They can just listen to the audio of the video, which talks about what the Harlem Renaissance was. It discusses changes from World War I time into the 1920s. It discusses the changing geographical locations of African American populations and how that affects their creativity, how that brings us into jazz culture, a few things like that. We're only going to play 1 minute and 30 seconds of that, and after we play the 1 minute and 30 seconds, we're going to ask students, you know, what's different about African Americans after World War I, what's changed, but again, not go into the why yet. We're going to save the why for later. Then after that, we have Kelly.
Hey! So for my presentation portion, I'm going to be talking about the rise of the Jazz Age, which ties in with the new positions of African Americans in society. You have the growth of jazz clubs
Uh-oh.
I think it's still recording.
Okay. I'll just.
The computer went to sleep.
Okay, we're good. I just want to make sure it didn't stop. Yeah, so you have the rise of the jazz age and the Harlem Renaissance, so blacks are becoming more prominent in music and dance, and how that brings in the idea of flappers and just this new society of leisure, and the economy that kind of goes along with that. So we will be playing specifically 2 videos. We'll kind of talk about some of the major jazz artists, one of them being Louis Armstrong, and I'm probably going to play about the first 30 seconds of that clip. And then I'll also talk about how the 1920s jazz age actually influences the growth of big band jazz in 1930s and 1940s. And I'll briefly show about 30 or 40 seconds of a clip from Glenn Miller and his song In the Mood, which is probably one of the most famous jazz pieces that people recognize. And after that, we will move on to dancing.
Okay. So for this portion, it's going to combine so what we talked about with the fashion and also with music. So we're going to talk about dancing and how it changed from the 1910s to the 1920s, and how people were getting more closer to each other when they danced. It was more fluid, more sexual, or it had the sexual notation to it, and incorporating also how like the clothes, how they needed like how they were wearing shorter clothes, just so movement and so that they could move more.
Yeah, less corset and stuff like that.
Yeah. And so after that we will proceed into a discussion of comparing everything and
Yeah. Our major question for the discussion is going to be how are these individual changes indicative of a larger change as a whole, and we're hoping that by showing these different changes, things like fashion, women, African Americans, music, dance, everything, they can see that everything ties in together and there's a larger context for all of these changes that's going on. We wanted to bring it back to our poll and talk about changing roles for women, changing roles for African Americans, changing political times and economics of the time, all those things having an effect on just daily lifestyle.
Yeah.
And we've seen such a drastic change between World War I lifestyle and the 1920s lifestyle. And we're all going to try and kind of lead the discussion, bring all of our thoughts into that portion. And we're hoping the discussion will last about 10 minutes.
Yeah, so it's pretty much like the first 10 minutes is going to be based on the poll and the videos that kind of introduce everything. The next 10 minutes or so is going to be kind of going through some of those different slides with like the fashion, African Americans, jazz, and the last 10 minutes is just going to be like a group discussion. And we figured the best way to do it would be to kind of like make it more fluid between all 3 of us, so it wouldn't feel as awkward for like one person to be doing a lot of discussing and the other 2 having to hold back. We just figured it's the best way to handle that, and this way we can really focus on all the social stuff that's going on during this time period and just bring in our own ideas like, oh, and if you look at the economics, this is how it influences as well. So that's kind of our presentation, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
Yay.